Okay, so let's get into cleaning this Amazing Spider-Man 316. So this is probably one of my favorite covers of the Amazing Spider-Man, especially ones that are Venom oriented. And it's a classic cover and a lot of homages that are done to it. So along with Spider-Man 300, which is the first appearance of Venom, you got the black suit, kind of a very notable cover on the front of it. This is probably I would have to say, the second most well-known cover. There's tons, as I said, tons of homages to it. And it's just a phenomenal cover. And if you're a fan of Todd McFarlane, you can't ignore how great this cover is. Now, it's got it's actually a little harder, I feel like, to find than the ASM 300s and even the 361s, the first appearance of Carnage. So I have been particularly looking for some of these newsstand copies, and they tend to be ones that are beat up a little more. And it always requires some level of cleaning in here. So the first thing I do, I always put it on a backer board, which just makes it easier to maneuver. So you can turn the comic in different directions without having to slide the physical comic. And what that'll do is that prevents any scratches to the back of the book. So you don't want to be like dragging the book this way across any surface, because that's going to cause scuffs or scrapes on the back of the comic. And that's going to negatively impact the grade. So this allows me to work with the surface as well. Now, I've taken a number of those pieces that are from my kind of those cornerstones of my cleaning kit, which are in that starter pack: the wipe, the absorbing pad, the white tip eraser, and some of these melamine magic eraser pads. And that's what we're primarily going to use on this. Now, the first thing I do is I always inspect the comic. When I get a new comic, I always want to peek behind the first cover and see if I lucked out in getting any kind of double covers. Of course not in this one. Since this is a newsstand, you might also be excited to kind of peek at the center to see if there is the Mark Jewelers insert. There isn't in this one. And you'll also kind of notice that the pages in this one are a little yellower than some of the ones I've seen. So the colors can vary of these page colors. So this is definitely an off-white book. Still a great copy. If you look at the cover, you can look at the edges. There's only some very fine spine ticks here. I can see definitely in these white areas, which is where we're going to focus our cleaning, that there's a need to get some grime that's accumulated there. I'll also look at it from the side, so it's something you can't see from the video, but I'll look as the light catches it to see if there's any bends or any kind of divots in the cover that need to be addressed during the pressing process. And having said that, let me just say, so you can certainly improve the grade of a comic with just cleaning alone. And I'll, in my next video, I have a comic that is queued up that is perfect for cleaning, to show how just the cleaning itself can improve the quality. Because when you get into Golden Age books, those covers, the back covers, are horribly dirty. You can't find one that is clean without some kind of touch-up or cleaning. So those are perfect candidates for cleaning, and you don't even need a press to get those into better condition just by this process. So if you don't have a press, or you're thinking about getting into pressing, this is a great way to start, which is cleaning books and getting used to handling them. Now, if you want an easy way to flip it without having to worry about turning the book over and creating additional bends, you can always put another backer board on top, flip it over like that. You don't have to worry about any bends. So now we're going to go through the back of this cover. You can see that there's a minor spine tick right there. There's a minor color breaking spine tick right there. There's also in this cover, it's hard to see in this video, but there's also a little bend right here in the corner, here and here. I hope that can likely be removed by pressing. That probably will, but these spine ticks, because they are color breaking, are not going to be able to be addressed. And hopefully that won't knock the grade down too much. Like, you can have a couple minor defects and still be in the 9.6 to 9.8 range, but anything significant, like if you were to send this book in as is with this bend and these spine ticks, there's no way you're going to get into the 9.6, 9.4. This is going to knock it down at least into the 9.2 range without addressing it, considering it's got these other minor defects on here. So I'm going to start back on the front cover. And one of the things you always want to have handy is a second backer board. So you want to support the page as much as possible. You don't want to just have it and working on it like this. So the first thing I do, I've done this book quite a few times. I always like to start with Amazing Spider-Woman's letter. So what I'll do is I'll take the additional backer board, I'll take this glossy side and we'll put the glossy side down. My hand's gonna press relatively firmly on this side of it. And what that does is that prevents that kind of like scrunching up motion. So if you're working on it, you don't want the page to scrunch it up and to cause any bends on these other areas. So I'm gonna start with my pencil capped eraser. I also use an absorbing pad to clean this eraser. So you can just wipe it on there. This is about the size, a little smaller than what's included in the starter kit. You can use that to clean the eraser tips so that you're not transferring any of that dirt or grime on there. So you always want to check your eraser. And then I'm just going to start very gently with very gentle to moderate pressure going around this lettering. Now, this in general is a very tedious process, but kind of enjoyable. So you basically, it's a trade-off with time and the outcome of grade. So the more time you put in, the more careful you are. You definitely don't want to rush this process in general. You want to kind of just enjoy it. So I like to put on an audiobook or to put on some music, and I'll just either relax to music or relax to an audiobook while I'm not trying to, I definitely wouldn't watch a movie. You don't want to be distracted during this process. You want to be able to focus on the book, but at least have some kind of maybe white noise that will allow you to kind of, zone out a little bit as you kind of just enjoy this kind of monotonous task of doing this lettering. And again, it can be kind of relaxing to do this process, just this repetition and attention to detail and not having to worry about everything else going on in the world. You can just sit here and clean the comic and kind of enjoy your hobby of collecting while knowing that you're kind of improving the grade of the comic as you're kind of doing this process. So you can say I'm being very careful where I don't end up going on to the regions of the cover that have color. So I'm sticking to the white. If you see areas where there's a little more dirt or grime, you can apply some moderate pressure, but not too much. You definitely don't want to be rubbing off any like gloss or any color from those different areas. So I'll finish an area, then I'll usually grab my wipe and I'll just go in one direction and make sure that I'm getting all of the eraser shavings off of that area. And then I'll check my eraser again, clean it off, and then just go very gently to the other pages. So one other thing I will mention, as I said, this can be very relaxing. One thing I've always been, you kind of always have that tendency to be like, man, it'd be nice to enjoy a beer, have a glass of wine while you're doing this process, listen to your book and relax. I will say that you definitely do not want to do this while you're under any influence of alcohol or any other drug for that matter. So it is relaxing. It probably would be very relaxing if you were having a glass of wine or a beer or enjoying something else, but you want all of your mental faculties about you, so to speak, while you're doing this process. You will be hugely upset with yourself if you have a glass of wine, get a little buzz on, and then all of a sudden bend the cover of your book. So, we're talking about, right now I'm working on probably somewhere around a $80 to $100 raw copy of a book. If you think about what could potentially grade in out, it would be a lot more than that. You definitely don't want to end your night, especially since I usually do this in the evening, with ruining the book, tearing an edge or doing something to adversely impact the grade and then being upset with yourself and being pissed off. So as much as that sounds like it's an enjoyable process, again, I would avoid doing it. All right. So now as I've seen, it didn't take too long. I may go back over and check all the letters and see if there's any areas where I could maybe touch up. So I see a couple spots over here that I could clean, and then wipe that off again. And then what I'll do now with this absorbing pad, now when you start using this, you'll know it's kind of got a little grip to it. It's really kind of like a sponge that is almost like a little rubber built into it. So you could definitely, if you went against the edge of the book, like you always want to keep the crease in the opposite direction as you're stroking. You don't want to go this way. You want to go this way so that this is a secure part of the book, your hand is here, and there's no stress or no chance of bending the book when you're doing this. And I'm just going to wipe with light pressure in a single direction across the cover of the book like this. And all that's doing is kind of doing one additional step of cleaning the dirt that might be residual that I missed with, think of this as a broad tool and this is a fine tool. So we're going back and just doing any kind of fine scale cleaning with this. I'm going to go around the edge. You'll notice there's actually some little ink transfer right there. I can clean that up a little bit by just focusing on that area and spending a little more time cleaning that. Okay, now that'll do it for kind of this trade dress area of the book. And I'm going to now rotate the entire book like this, so you can see now where that comes in handy. I'm going to reposition my backer board, and for your information, these are magazine size backer boards. They're about $14 or so for 100 on Amazon. That's about the cheap, actually that's through eBay. That's about the cheapest I can find it on eBay. So now I'm going to go here and I'm going to do the same thing, but very lightly on the issue number and the comic book code. And I can see that this area right here in the yellow picks up grime like nothing else. So I can see that, but I don't want to use this eraser tip on there. I want to use the absorbent pad, and I'm just going to go, again, light to medium pressure in the direction toward you. I always find that's easier to work. And I'm just going to repetitively go over this area. And the same thing for where the issue number is. That's I can tell by how yellow this is that this the page quality in here is maybe not as keen. So that's kind of a telltale of your page condition. So I'm going to continue using this down the length of the book, being very careful that I'm keeping good pressure with my left hand to make sure that the book is not moving and that I'm not inducing any bends accidentally. I'll focus on McFarlane's John Hancock right here, clean that up a little bit. I'll slide this a little closer to me, and then I'll take a look at the barcode area. So I'll try to just hit the white areas with the eraser. Just very lightly. I mean, I'm barely pushing any pressure on there. I don't want to take up any of that ink while I'm doing this. So I'm really interested to hear what kind of books you guys are thinking about doing if you're picking up the pressing and grading, or the pressing and cleaning process. I will say that this is probably the best skill that I've learned in the comic book collecting, next to getting familiar with grading books on my own. So looking at a raw book and knowing the grade just based on the defects, and building that experience where I can look at a book and be able to put it within a grade level plus or minus. Most of the time I'll hit it on the head. So with the 361 project I was doing, looking for a 9.8, I had a whole bunch that were in the range of 9.2 to 9.8, and I wrote down on a piece of paper what I thought they were, and I sent them in, and when I got them back, they were exactly what I thought they were. So it just takes some experience, and especially experience with a book too. So the grades can vary. You'll get used to seeing the grades of a specific book, and you'll know what a good 361 looks like, or a good 300 or 316, or whatever your book of interest is. All right, so now I'm going to turn this and we're going to focus. Right now I'm going to clean my eraser. I'm going to do a quick check of my recording device to make sure that it's still going. I haven't lost you and I'm talking to no one. And then I'm going to start in on Venom's Eyes. This is, if you look at this book a lot, if you've seen a lot of copies of it, this will tell you right away how soiled your book is. Look at Venom's eyes, look at his symbol on his chest, and look at Spider-Man's eyes and across the trade dress right here. And that will tell you how much dirt or grime this copy is accrued. So if you're looking at an eBay auction, you want to know how well a book has been taken care of. If it's been sitting in a back and board for its entire existence, then it's the eyes and the logos are going to be super clean. If it has been stacked with other books, then you will definitely see the dirt, because it's basically ink transfer. I mean, in addition to the dirt and dust that accrues on it, you will have ink transfer from the book that it was sitting behind. So imagine this in a box with a 300, and the 300's got a complete black cover. There's going to be ink transfer between the 300 and this front of this book. So you're going to get black marks all over the front cover. So again, a really quick check is to just look at the eyes. The eyes are the key to the soul and to the grade, apparently. So you take a look at the eyes of this particular book, and that will tell you how well it's been kept over the years. And I guarantee, some of these things that I feel like I've picked up when I can look at the condition of the book and kind of an idea, or I have these places where you get familiar with a book and you know where to look for the problems. I guarantee those are the same things that the graders at CGC use who look at the same book over and over again. When I look at a 361 now, because I've looked at so many, I can immediately look at the areas where I know will knock down the grade. The staples get loose, there's usually a gap there, there's a lot of the spine stress by the staples, the way that the miswrap is, the way it varies between different prints of the book, as well as the grabber tears that are on the bottom. So if you've ever seen, a lot of 361s have a grabber tear at the bottom of the page from the manufacturing process, which are supposedly not supposed to count toward the grade of the book, but first of all, it presents a lot better. If I was picking as a purchaser between one that was a 9.8 with the grabber tears and a 9.8 without, I would buy the one that didn't have them there. So I think all of those things are things that contribute to the grade, and places that I look when I'm purchasing a comic. Then again, that comes with the familiarity with a particular issue. So I know with this one, you do get that spine stress. So around the staples, that staple stress. So I'll always look there. You can see a little color break on this one. I'll include some photos with this as well, but you can see a little bit of stress right there. Very minor spine ticks, but again, around these staples is a good place to immediately look to have a good idea of what the condition is of the book. All right, so Spidey's eyes. His eyes in this one look like they're a little shadowed. He needed a little bit of sleep last night. Maybe that's why he's getting beaten up by Venom over here. But we're gonna whiten those up for him. Make him look as fresh as the day he came off the printer. So again, this can just be a very relaxing process. Going back to the beer or wine, you certainly can have a drink while you do this, like a water or something, or a tea or a coffee, but do not put that stuff near your comic. You don't want to be eating hot dogs with ketchup and mustard and drinking any kind of colored beverage or even water next to these things. The last thing you want to do is accidentally knock over your beverage onto the book. And if you're like me and have little kids running around, then that's more likely than not, right? So you never know when you're going to be sitting in here and your kid's going to wake up or come home or something and run right in and knock the whatever you have sitting there onto your book, or even you just getting up and forgetting that you put your drink there, knock it over. So just avoid that. Don't put it on the table. You want a nice, clean, flat workspace. You can see that I'm working on this black surface, which is actually a self-healing cutting mat that I do all of my processing on and my pressing staging. So it's really easy to keep clean. And when I need to crack slabs and cut open the encapsulation from inside. It makes it easy to use the razor blade to cut open the encapsulation, which can be a very harrowing process if you've never done it before, because you're always afraid you're going to slip and put your razor blade straight through the side of the book that you're trying to improve the grade, and that's the last thing you want to do, right? Okay, so I'm kind of finishing up the front cover. I'm just wiping any kind of residual shavings that might be there from the absorbent pad or from the pencil tip eraser. And then now once I've done that, I'm just going to go over and I'm going to lightly do some circles with this cleaning pad on the surface of the book. Now, when you do this, you're gonna want to make sure that you avoid the edges of the book. So when you get to that edge, you kind of just want to go that way, right? You don't want to catch that edge of the book and end up bending it or tearing it. If you are doing an older book that may have any kind of chips out of the corner or tears, you certainly want to avoid those. And if you, again, going back to say SM361, if you're doing that and you have grabber tears on the bottom, you don't want to be circling like this on top of the grabber tears. So you want to avoid those. And what this is going to do is this is going to just clean up the residual dirt. You would be surprised at the amount of dirt that just this process removes and how much shine you can get back to the cover just by taking some time and massaging, so to speak, the cover. You're going to get a lot of dirt up. You're going to restore some of that shine on there. So just taking this process to go through and clean it up is really awesome. And you can see that as I'm moving up the comic, I am moving this backer board up and always keeping good pressure. You might have noticed that a little bit ago I didn't have enough pressure and the book slipped a little bit. That's exactly what you're trying to avoid. You don't want to have any scuffs or anything that occur because you drag the book across the hard surface. All right, now I'm going to rotate this around. And I'm going to do the trade dress. This is a great book to clean because I think a lot of the time it's been neglected, and because of this cover and again those eyes and the white trade dress, it really can accrue a lot of dirt. And just by doing this process, I guarantee if you did this, even if you're not planning on pressing and grading, but you wanted to list the book, you could do this beforehand, and I guarantee when you take close-ups of the front of the cover and the back of the cover, it will command a higher dollar amount. Okay, so I have the front cover pretty well where I like it. I don't think I'm going to get much more, and that's also kind of something you're going to learn as you go through this process. There is a point at which there are diminishing returns. You know, you talk about that term a lot, so you know, the law of diminishing returns. The more you're clean is going to less incrementally impact the grade. And in this case, you can potentially do damage. So too much of any of this is really bad. You know, you get too crazy with the eraser, you're gonna take ink up and you're gonna put a nice mark on the front of the cover, and you're gonna be really upset with yourself. So know when to stop and know what can and can't be fixed. So things like very light ink transfer can be fixed. Removing pencil from the cover of a book, that can be fixed relatively depending on where it is. Things like soiling or stains or a lot more significant damage, discoloration. If you have, I guess stains is the big one. There are methods to remove stains, but those are really advanced and take a lot of practice to be able to get right. And they involved using hydrogen peroxide to remove some of those stains. You'll never get it correct, and again, you'll mess up a lot of books. So you definitely don't want to try it out on an expensive book the first time around. Also, it's worth noting that I'm showing this on a book that's relatively valuable. and it's not one that I would practice this on. So I would go to your local comic book store. I would grab a couple dollar bin books, maybe some that are really dirty and really beat up. Take before and after pictures and just try it out. Try these techniques out. That way, if you mess it up, if you take ink out, you won't be upset with yourself. You're gonna, waste your time maybe, but it's all for the learning process, right? So the more you practice, the better you'll get. You'll learn those things about like when to stop, when to call it a day, which again, I think is one of the biggest things you can learn throughout this process. So I'm starting the back a little differently than I started the front. This whole back kind of has a color to it. So it's not white to the point where I would use the eraser. And the first thing I want to do is just give it a good wipe. Again, when we're being cautious of these corners, when I get there, I'm going directionally and in an area, and then I'm focusing on just giving a good wipe. Now, there is some ink transfer that I can see on this cover. That's where I'm going to focus most of my cleaning. And there's not much I can do about it. So it's going to be a very light approach. So there is a little bit of ink transfer right here. And what ink transfer is probably like, you see this dark ink, this dark spot right here, there's the lettering. Basically just from dragging it across other comics, you're going to get the ink, or even just the back of the board, you're going to get the ink from here that gets smeared into these whiter areas. So that will impact the grade, obviously. And for some, to some degree, it can be lightened up through this process using the absorbing pad. And we're going to go just very lightly. Again, I'm going away. I'm going toward the edge of the book, away from the center. And I'm going in a single direction. And I'm just going to go over these areas, keeping moderate to light pressure on my left hand to keep the book from moving. And I'm just going to very repetitively go over that same area. And I make sure that I'm not pressing too hard, and I'm not using any kind of harder technique. So I would definitely not use these magic eraser pads on this. I can actually post. I think it'd be a funny idea of a what not to do video with these cleaning techniques, and that way you can see if you put too much pressure with the eraser, if you put too much pressure with the absorbing pad. If you use the magic eraser in the wrong sections of the book, how bad that can be. So there are also, in addition to these videos I'm going to be making, there's a number of tutorials online. There's some great resources. I'm a member of a Facebook page that's called Captain Mike's. I think it's just Captain Mike's, but it's Captain Mike's Comic Book Pressing is a website, and it's a great source of information to share your results, learn the do's and don'ts, learn techniques, and kind of share in the wins and losses of this process. So I'll also mention one of the things I didn't mention that you can do with these boards. So if this was an all white cover, what you kind of noticed was that I kind of covered a lot of the colored portion. So if this was all white, with this ink, imagine it was someplace I was going to do some heavy cleaning, I can cover this with the board, and that way I can focus my work on just this section, and I don't have to worry about removing the ink from a portion that I don't want to, right? And even I can maybe try very lightly with the eraser, and I can already see that would be too much for this area. So we're just gonna clean it up a little more. I can go over to the side. Again, if this was a white covered book, like a Golden Age book, and I was doing the corner or the side, then I would cover it like this, and this is an area where I could use the magic eraser to clean up any kind of residual dirt or grime that wasn't picked up by the eraser or by the absorbing pad. So very short motions, very light to moderate pressure, going along the side of the book. And then I'm just going to wipe that. All right, now that I've done that, I'm just going to go give it a one last wipe just in case I can get any of residual dirt off with the absorbing pad. Dragging it very lightly across the surface to get that dirt up. It's kind of funny that we're cleaning a book that has this Clear Soul ad on the back of it. Very, very suiting. I don't know what it would do if you used a Clear Soul pad on this. Probably not a very good idea. This is also an area where you want to be very cautious. So where you have this black lettering, you definitely don't want to go too heavy on this area. You want to do it very lightly, even with the white. You want to go very lightly over this area. If you're too hard, you're going to take up that black ink really easily. So this was a book that had some very light soiling to it. The next one I'll show is one that has pretty moderate soiling that would significantly benefit it. But this is always, when I'm trying to aim for a high grade, this is always part of the process of cleaning and pressing. So again, even if you're not ready to get in pressing, this is an excellent way of starting out, getting familiar with your books. I will definitely say that it changed the way that I collect to be able to do this process. You'll start looking at books and consider them when before you're like, I don't know, that back's kind of dirty, I don't like that one. And you start to think, oh, well, I could clean that, I could fix that. There's a little bend right there, I can fix that with the press. And you can use that as negotiating tactics to get a little bit of a better deal. And all you're doing is trading off your time. So if you're willing to put in the time to learn this practice and to learn the process, then you can really expand your collection for a lot less money. Especially when you get to the point where you can fix comics and increase their grade to the point where they grade significantly higher than they were. All right, so now that I have the back cover, again, I'm kind of making note of these bends on here where I'm gonna have to maybe have some specific attention. I'm also looking at my work area. So before pressing, instead of getting a little ahead, you wanna make sure that there's no other residual pencil eraser marks on there, because you don't want those going into the press when you get to that stage. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cover this, I'm going to flip it, and then I am going to navigate to the center fold, and I have here another backer board, a fresh clean magazine backer board, and the process for pressing requires a backer board and a really thick backboard in the center, and then cardstock behind the front and the back cover. So when I'm prepping for the press process, I'm always going to put these to the staples. I'm going to close the book. This is going to give it extra support. And then what I'll do, as you've seen in some of the videos, is I'm going to apply humidity with the comic like this. And then I'm going to then insert those cardstock pages behind the front and back cover. And then that is going to go into the press. But again, if you want to get into this, you don't necessarily need to do that step. You can make your books a lot more attractive just by doing this cleaning process, and enjoy the entire process of the time you spend improving the quality of your collection. So I hope that this video was helpful. I'll have more in the future. We're gonna come back next time with a moderately soiled book, and that way we can talk about some of the different techniques. We can get into some of these other tools, but definitely check out these kits I have available. Look for some books at your local comic store that you can use as practice, and get into it. You'd be amazed. It's very addictive, and soon you're going to be doing it on a daily basis. So again, hope this helps. See you next time.